We take off on the green. Here come your dad. He gets the outside of me, and I raced his ass as hard as I could race him. And I hung him on the outside for like 6 laps. Finally, he got by me and got in line. Park after the race in the garage. He come over, poked me in the chest, and now I'm scared to death. I think he's going to, something's wrong here.
The following is a production of Dirty Mo Media. All right, so we're going to have a great show today, and Todd Bodine, one of the 3 Bodine brothers that had success in the NASCAR world, is going to come into the room here in a moment. I raced against Todd in the Xfinity Series. We had one famous run-in that we're going to talk about. And Todd had a very roller coaster-esque type of career. A lot of positives, a lot of tough moments, a lot of struggles as well. But ultimately, man, he would find awesome success, incredible success at the Truck Series level. And we're going to hear all about that, his whole path to get there and more. So he's in the studio lobby, so let's go ahead and bring him in here and get started. Todd Bodine on the Dale Jr. Download. Hey.
Hey, dude. What are you doing
here?
How are you?
What do you got on here? Ross Chastain?
I got to support my guy, man.
Is Ross your guy?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
What I mean?
Is that your driver? You just like his style?
No, I've known Ross since he was 12 years old.
I didn't know that. The teacher of Ross.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, he's turned into quite the race car driver these days.
He has.
Yeah.
And that was the thing Mike told me back then. He said, you're not going to believe how good this kid is at 12 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, at 12 years old, he's out there beating these adults.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty awesome. Man, I thank you for coming today. I've always kind of had a lot of respect for you, and we always, our families had some tough things that they went through together, and we're going to get into that, and I'd love to hear your perspective on it. And then we raced against each other, and I learned a thing or two from you.
Speaking of which,
yeah.
Let's just stop right there for a minute.
Okay.
All right. So you got all your tchotchkes hanging out here and everything. So I brought you a little present.
Oh, boy.
All right. Put it up here with the rest of your tchotchkes.
The cue ball. Signed by Todd. I love it.
You want to tell them the story?
Yeah. Oh, we were going to get there.
I loved it.
We'll get there. We'll get to that.
Okay.
So get to that story.
I should have saved it then.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. Everybody's now giving something to look forward to.
It's funny. You're going to like it.
So, obviously your brother Geoff and your brother Brett raced, and you followed their path into NASCAR. And I guess my biggest question on that is, was it how much of their success, or how much as they go along the way, how much of that was a help to you? Was that a difference maker in giving you opportunities? I feel like, I don't know that about you, but with Brett, I felt like it got Brett to the track, but not once he got in these cars, like he drove for the Thomas Brothers guys and had a couple one-off races in Robert G's car and so forth. He had to go out there and do it, right? He had to go out there and run good. But his relationship with his brother and his brother's success, Jeff's success, would present opportunity, but he had to go get in the car and show what he could do.
Yeah, you got to go do it. I'm not going to say it didn't help. Yeah. It had to help. Your name recognition, all that,
Yeah.
But my path was a little different. A lot of guys started when they're really young. I didn't.
Why not?
I didn't have the opportunity.
What was going on up north? You were still in Chemung or around that area?
Well, we moved from Chemung to Massachusetts. Where Geoff was racing.
How old were you?
I was 13 when we moved. Then we moved to Virginia. Kind of followed Geoff south at that point, and my dad actually helped build Log Cabin Speedway.
Damn.
With Satch Worley.
Really?
Yeah. Have you ever been to Log Cabin?
No, but I know about it.
Okay, so we lived right at the racetrack. They had a little old barn they converted into a house, and that's where we lived.
No.
I graduated high school there, and we moved back to Connecticut.
One moment.
Okay.
So you're as a graduate from high school, I'm assuming 17, 18 years old, you still haven't drove a thing.
No.
Do you want to?
At this point, yeah. I mean, I know that I love racing. In fact, when I was in Virginia, I spent the summer racing with Geoff around the South when he was driving for Emmanuel Sarakis.
In the sportsman car?
Sportsman, which is Xfinity now, yeah.
The white 99?
White Tornado.
Yep.
Yeah. South Boston, South Side, Langley.
Damn.
I mean, Hickory. I went everywhere with them. So I knew I wanted to be in racing. And at this point, I had no money. My parents had no money. I couldn't even race go-karts.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's like, okay, just forge my path somehow. Well, it was about working on race cars. Well, when I graduated high school, I moved back to Connecticut. And I went to work.
By yourself?
By myself, yeah. 2 weeks after I graduated, I was gone.
Why would you leave what was kind of the hub of everybody in the world's trying to get to Charlotte, right?
Well, my world, I grew up with modifieds. That was my world, okay? Now, Geoff was down here racing. Yeah. It was different, right? But I couldn't just be in sportsman racing. My path was, or my opportunity was, Brett was racing in Connecticut in modifieds, in New England. Still. And I actually went to work for the company that owned his race car, which was Sherry Cup. They made paper cups.
Oh.
So I went to work in the maintenance department. I built all the guards and stuff for the machines to keep OSHA happy. Well, when I wasn't working on machines, I was over at the race shop working on the race cars.
Ah.
And his owner was kind enough to let me build my first race car in the shop that winter.
What was the car?
It was a modified, or an SK modified, which is modified cylinder? With a stock motor in it.
With a stock motor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's the SK today? Is it four-cylinder? Or?
No, it's still V8s,
really?
And I think they're basically still stock motors.
Oh, okay.
But they allow them to do a lot more than just stock anymore.
I got you.
But it's not like a built motor and a full modified. Yeah.
Okay.
So I did that for a little bit on my own money. Had no money. Went broke. Drove a couple cars for some guys, and middle of 1985, I was driving a real box, full modified. And we were on a 100-lapper at Stafford Springs. A guy turned me going into 3, and I slapped the wall driver's side hard. The guy that owned the car had no money. I mean, it was so bad. I'd go to the tire truck, get takeoffs to put on the car. So they tow the car in the garage in the pit area, and the guy's standing there just about in tears. He said, Todd, I can't afford to fix this car. And I said, it's a good thing, Mike, because guess what? I'm packing my and I'm moving to North Carolina. Middle of 85, I went to North Carolina.
Damn.
Because I was, at that point, I had 42 starts in my whole life.
Your whole life?
My whole life, and I was 21 years old.
Yeah.
22 years old.
What was in North Carolina waiting on you?
Well, Geoff was driving for Rick. Brett was working on the sportsman cars. Mm-hmm. So my first job in racing in the South was working for your grandfather.
Robert G.
And my God, what an eye-opening experience that was. Holy cow. I remember first day, I came in on a Tuesday. And 2 weeks, not the weekend before, but the weekend before that, Richmond's driving a car, Tim Richmond, and they were at Darlington. And him and your dad got in a pissing contest on the racetrack. And they both knocked the front ends off their car, just ramming each other.
Yeah.
So my first job was to put the ductwork in front of that car. They'd already got the nose back on. My job was to put the ductwork. So I show up at 8 o'clock. Brett's working there. I start working on this car.
So you and Brett are both working in my granddaddy's backyard shop.
Yeah.
Holy
yeah.
How long were y'all there? Like, I don't remember any of that. I wasn't at granddaddy's shop a lot, but I was kind of around a couple times a year.
I was there probably 2 years, maybe.
Did you ever see me?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah.
But I got to finish the story because it's funny as hell.
Of course.
So I'm putting the ductwork in the front of this car. Now, I'm modified world, right? Mm-hmm. Things fit perfect, cutting around the bars and the bumpers and everything. Everything's got to be just perfect and beautiful. Nice bead rolls. So Robert, his work hours weren't the same as the rest of ours. No. He gets out there 11:30. So this is about 11 o'clock, and he comes rolling out there. And I'd never met him at this point, right? I just showed up, started working. And he comes out, shuffling out there, and he got the cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and he looks down there and says, boy, let me tell you something. This ain't no show car. You got to get this done. We got to go to lunch soon. That was my introduction to Robert G.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's amazing what they got done in that little shop.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. And how many races they won out of that little shop. Holy cow.
His cars freaking were awesome. Ran good.
Yeah.
He had support from Rick and all those things. And I can't tell you how many people have sat down at this table and told me that they worked there.
It's crazy.
So many people went through that building.
Yeah.
And it's still there. There's a guy renting it right now from Schrader. Schrader owns the property today. So you worked there for a couple years. At what point do you start finding your way back behind the wheel of a car?
Well, when that summer when I moved down, Brett was friends with Jay Hedgecock.
Yep.
Jay's a great guy.
Yep. We run his cars in the car store.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They run good.
Yeah.
And Brett asked Jay, he says, hey, anybody Todd can drive for a little bit in stock cars, He said, well, I got this guy in Durham, doesn't have a driver. Same kind of deal, one car shop, just him. Really good guy. Vernon Lloyd was his name. And let me call him. So Jay calls him, says, yep, he wants Todd to drive Martinsville for him.
What? In what?
A late model stock car. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm going to have to go look at this thing, fit the seat, see. Yeah. So I go up there, and he's a really nice guy. He's a plumber by trade. And I get there, and the car's, it's in good shape, but it needed work. You know what I mean? So I went up a couple weekends, got the seat in, set it up, had the blocks on the floor, and you just let it down, check the wedge. It's basically, and we go to Martinsville, and the thing's hauling ass. I've been to Martinsville my whole life. I've been going there since I was 8 years old. So I knew the track. I knew how to drive it by watching. I just had to go do it. So we were running really good, and in the race, the battery would in the corner would go over and short out and then come back. So we ended up going a lap down, but still was fast. Well, because of that race, Danny Bumpus, who owned a car that raced at Orange County, South Boston, he come over and said, hey, I want you to drive for me.
Yeah.
It's like, holy cow, my first real job as a driver. This is awesome.
And a late model stock?
Late model stock car.
Damn you.
Yeah.
I didn't know you had real late model stock experience. That's my jam.
Yeah, I know. I love late model stock cars. Yeah. It's awesome. So that winter, I knew Servakis, Butchie Servakis, Emmanuel, and I called Butchie up and said, look, we want to build a new car. So I went up and I lived with Butchie for 2 weeks, and me and Butch built a car from the steel rack to a rolling race car, brand new Mustang. Mm-hmm. And we had the other car was a Thunderbird. And so I raced that car. This is the bad part of the story. I raced that car 13 times. We blew 8 motors.
Damn.
Crashed 3 times. And the rest of the times we finished in the top 5. And we always raced in the top 5, but just happened. And the crew chief was this little old redneck Southern dude, and he hated Yankees with a passion. Yeah. And he fired me. Mm. So then I'm back out of a ride. So I went to work.
Where?
I went to from Robert G's. I ended up at Tiger Tom's.
How was that?
Another place that people have gone through. It was awesome. I was a fabricator. I can't tell you how many dump cans I built in my life. I built all those little tchotchkes that race teams needed. The catch cans back then, dump cans.
That's what they did.
Yeah. And I built a couple of dirt cars. Yeah, so I had my little room in the back. And from there, I went to Buck Baker Driving School.
What'd you do there?
I was a fabricator. Yeah, built bodies on the cars, and never was an instructor or anything because I didn't know what the hell I was doing racing.
How many? Golly. So how long were you there? Because he's out of Rockingham full time then?
At that point, Buck? No, Buck was actually right down the street from Tiger Tom on the other side of the railroad tracks.
But they were taking their cars to Rockingham, or where were they running the Buck Baker School?
Yeah, out of Rockingham.
Yeah.
But our
you
shop
just worked
was here.
there.
Yeah, I was just a fabricator, building bodies, working on them, maintenance them, everything that you needed to do on them.
Yeah. Were people tearing their up?
Yeah. You'd be surprised. The rich guys that get out there think they know how to drive and tear the up.
Damn.
Yeah. But there was times where I didn't have a lot to do. So I told Buck, I said, look, let's take in some work. I'll do some bodies, you know. Robert taught me how to do good bodies. Let me do some. So we did. And our first customer was Billy Standridge.
Damn. Yeah.
And he had a Nova, and it was pretty rough, and he wanted to get it ready to go to Charlotte.
Yep. Purple 47.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I cut the sides off and made some nice sides, and this thing was Robert G'd out. This thing was trick. I mean, Robert told me how to tuck the bumpers in and trim them and all that. It was awesome. Flaring the front fenders. So we built this car, and Billy asked Buck, he said, look, I need to borrow Todd for about 3 weeks. You think you can get this car ready and go to Charlotte and crew chief it for me?
Damn it. You?
Yeah, me. So, okay. So I go to Billy's. He's up in Shelby, which is about an hour and 10-minute drive. I went up there. Heck, I stayed on his couch many nights. We get this car ready to go. I get it all set up and, you know, had a decent motor. Now, this is when the V6s were coming in. We had a 311, so we had to carry a lot more weight. We go to Charlotte, and wouldn't you know, now this is Billy Standards. He's not supposed to qualify well. I think we qualified like 15th. And everybody's like, holy cow. It was so bad that Robert Black was the guy in charge. When the garage was gone, everybody's gone out of the garage was closed. He kept all his inspectors, and they took the cover off our car and told those guys, he says, find out where they're cheating.
Yeah.
I found this out like 2 years later. And we weren't cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did good. And then it ended up blowing up in the race, but he was running well. That was my first crew chief job.
Really? What'd you do after that?
Well, I stayed with Billy. I didn't go back to Bucks.
No?
Poor Buck. No, I didn't go back to Bucks. And we built another brand new short track car. And we were going to Martinsville that fall with it. And this thing was bad to the bone, man. I built my own lower A-frames. Instead of 1x2, I made them 3/4 by 1.5 inches. Had no bucket in it. I had the springs with the things welded on. I mean, this thing took like 450 pounds of lead.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. So we're at Martinsville, and Bobby Hillman was starting his Busch team. And he comes over, and he's walking through the garage area. He has no clue who I am. And he's looking at our car. He says, man, this thing's nice. Who built this? Well, I did. We all built it in our shop. Oh, this is a beautiful car. And he goes on. Well, a little while later, he's on the other side talking to my brother Brett, telling him, yeah, I'm starting this Busch team, and I need some people to work. I need a good fabricator. And Brett says, well,
I remember this.
You ought to talk to my brother Brett or my brother Todd. He said, he's over there working on a car now. He built one over there. And Bobby said, well, I was just over there looking at cars. He said, this purple car over there is beautiful. Brett said, that's the one my brother built.
Yeah.
So Bobby come back over. Sure, next week he hired me.
And Bobby's driving this 81 Buick LeSabre.
Yeah.
So you went over there to work as a fabricator mechanic?
Fabricator, chassis guy. I did all the setups.
There's probably only 2 or 3 of you working over there.
There's 3 of us, Jerry Kennan and myself and John Monson. Jerry was the official crew chief. We kind of did the setups together. We did all the shocks, all the spring calls, everything.
Yeah.
So I understood all this stuff at this point already. And we did really well there at Highline Racing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ted Condor, Bobby Hillen, and Felix Sabatis, his first venture into racing.
How did you get in? And you would end up getting behind the wheel of this car, and that would be your break.
That would be the break. So they let me build a car in the shop, a sportsman car. You remember the Sportsman Series at Charlotte?
Yep.
And we ran 4 of those races and finished second 3 times.
You driving?
I drove it.
Yep.
And we actually used that car as our show car when it wasn't being raced.
Yeah.
So we built this car in there. I built it at night. Beautiful car. It came out great. And because I did so well,
was it a new chassis or some old
No. It was one of Geoff's chassis.
One of his old Cup chassis?
One of his old Cup chassis.
People love this.
Waddell Wilson threw away.
Damn.
It was in the back of the shop.
Yeah.
And I went to ask Waddell, hey, what are you going to do today? He said, we're throwing it away. I said, well, can I have it? He said, yeah. So Geoff was driving for Rick. Brett was driving for Bud Moore.
Yeah.
And Bobby was driving for Stavola Brothers, which was right next door. These guys are racing for all these big teams. Well, Rick's group gave me some of their used parts. Bud Moore's group, he gave me some of their used parts. And Stavola's donated some stuff. I basically built this whole car for like $2,000.
Damn. That's how you do it.
That's how you do it. And brother Geoff bought the motor, $7,500 for a complete motor back then.
Damn, that's nice.
And we put it in there.
That's cheap.
And Felix got me sponsorship for all the races.
What was the sponsor?
The first two were Roses, because Roses was our sponsor at the time.
At the 81 car.
I take that back. The first one was Uniden, because Felix had a product deal with Uniden.
Yeah.
The second one was Roses, because we turned it into the show car. The third one was Ames, because Ames was our sponsor, and they actually were the fourth one too.
Yep.
So I do these races. We do pretty well. And now they buy Bobby out of the team, and Kyle comes in to drive because now they got Sabco. Kyle's driving for Felix and Sabco. Felix wanted Kyle to drive our car. So Ames is the sponsor, and they decided on, I think it was 18 races Kyle was going to run. And Ames comes back and says, hey, we want to run 8 more races. Kyle being Kyle. Now, we're all standing around in the shop when they told Kyle this. We're standing there BSing. Kyle's like, man, I don't want to run 8 more races. This is enough freaking races.
Yeah.
I've got enough crap I got to do. And we're standing, he says, let Todd drive the damn thing. I was like, oh, hell yeah. Send me in, coach, man. So I ended up running 8 races that year in the sportsman car, Busch car at the time.
Yep.
First one was Martinsville. Qualified like 12th. Got up. I was going to finish 5th, and I missed a restart on the last restart, or missed a shift on the last restart. Ended up 8th, but did really well. Second race was Dover. I never raced a big track like this before. Qualified 4th and finished 3rd.
Damn it.
And it was Harry Gant, Rick Mast, and me. We crossed the line right together. It was a hell of a race. Harry'd go up to the top, Rick could go in the middle, and I'd stay around the bottom. It was a hell of a race to watch.
When that happened, take me back to that day where, I would say that was probably you were probably as surprised or shocked or as thrilled to not have raced any more than you had. Here you are racing and competing and running good enough to win against, almost the Cup guys, right? You have this legacy that your brothers have created, that Geoff started, that Brett's part of now, and you're kind of like another chapter of that. All of that, all kind of culminating to that one moment in this race at Dover, and you're like, you go out there and run good. You get out and you're like, you see everybody, I can do this. I belong here. Right? What was your emotion after having a great day like that? I remember the first time I ran good in an Xfinity car. And I'd had some good days in my late model car, but nobody was watching, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody important saw it. But that first time I ran good in an Xfinity car was really a massive relief to me because I wanted to do this for a living. And so did you. And I can't imagine in that moment you were kind of like,
well, honestly, I don't think I was.
Yeah.
It was more, I grew up watching my brothers, both of them, win races, right? Modifieds. Geoff won over, 600 modified races or something. Brett probably won 50 or 60. So winning, racing, it was all what we did. So for me, when I get out, I can't really remember the whole thing, but when I get out there, it was more like, this is cool. I can do this, but, it wasn't about showing anybody that I could do it.
Gotcha.
It was almost a self-gratification. Hey, my brothers are good, and I think maybe I can do this, And being able to be in that car and do that, having a good race car to do it with, we all know that it starts with 4 wheels on the ground. It made a big difference. And I ended up running those 8 races. I ran really well. I almost won the Oxford 250 that year. I ended up finishing 3rd. But that's what caught the eye of Frank Cece and Scott Welliver.
Yeah.
And in 91, the winter of 91, they gave me my first full-time job as a race car driver.
So they had, trying to think of the timeline there, Spencer had driven that car. I'm not sure if Sprague was in it before you or after.
He was the one they fired to put me in.
So Spencer had
Jack never let me forget it either.
But Sprague, Spencer had used that car to create more opportunity, right? So this was this car was viewed as an absolute gateway into success, right?
Yeah.
And Sprague had used his success at the short track ranks to land that opportunity. Didn't work out. He would figure it out and have a career after that. But so here you are. I remember all this. Like, I remember I was uber focused on the series as a kid because of my dad's team, and he competed in it from time to time. And I remember, watching. I was, curious about you and whether you were, I knew your brothers and whether here's another Bodine. Is he going to be good? And you land that ride, and I think a lot of people were looking at that and going, all right, this will be where you find out whether you got it or not.
Yeah.
Did you feel, I know you were probably thrilled, over the moon, but was there any pressure at all?
No.
None.
I never felt pressured to live up to my brothers, to do anything. It was more of just the love of doing it, and I wanted to go do it.
What if the racing, I guess if the racing doesn't work out for you, you just still know your abilities otherwise are enough to keep you happy and content and plugged into the sport some way, somehow, because you'd amassed this expertise of fabricating, mechanical setup, and all the things.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew I was going to be
So the driving was like
the
driving was like the cherry on top.
Yeah.
So how did that year go?
Well, we started off pretty rough. We had 2 cars. We only got one done to go to Daytona. And
what was going to Daytona like for the first time?
I'd been there 100 times as a kid, and I went there as a crew member and all that stuff. And
when you pull out there, though, for the first time, you're like, holy shit.
Well,
because ain't nothing like it.
Yeah. Well, you got to pull off pit road and go wide open, and that's it. And I knew it. I come off a 2 and look at the other end of the straightaway, and you see that big old black wall down there, and you're like,
how?
I can do this. I can do this. I know I can do this. And you get there and you lift.
Yeah.
Like, son of a and about the second time around, it was wide open, and it was easy, you know. But we went there for the race and had a hard lesson. Somebody got into my left rear quarter panel and popped it loose from the crush panels. Well, we were, I think it was Jeff Burton, somebody else, and myself. We were drafting, just the 3 of us together, running about 12th probably. And we came off a 4, and we passed the lap car. And the wind, the air coming off the lap car went in to my left rear and bowed the quarter panel out and lifted the back of the car up, and I spun out, crashed it. Yeah, it was not good. That was my first Daytona meeting. But we went on. About the 12th race of the year was Dover, and we ended up winning the race.
Yeah,
which was a great story. It was 3 laps to go. Ernie was leading. Davey Ellison was second. I was third, and Jeff Gordon was fourth. We had about straightaway all of us together there. 3 laps to go. Ernie blows up going into 3, leading the race. So we come around, the caution's out. Davey's leading, I'm second. Pace car picks us up. Come around, we're going to get the white flag and yellow flag to end the race. 1 lap to go. We come off a 4, and Davey goes to the bottom of the racetrack. I didn't know what the hell was going on. I thought maybe it was something in the track, so I follow him. The rest of the field all starts following him, and pretty soon we're about stopped. And I look around him, and the pace car's way up there. Well, if I pull out and go around him, I take the white flag, leading the race, come around, won the race, checkered flag. Davey ran out of gas.
Damn.
There I was, won my first race.
Holy
yeah.
You had food poisoning.
For that race?
Yeah.
Oh, that was nasty. That was tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, before the race, I was at the garbage can several times.
Oh, my God.
Got out victory lane. I couldn't hardly breathe. I was so out of breath. I needed oxygen. I ended up getting a little bit of the victory lane out of the way, but
the car was sponsorless, white.
Yep.
This landed the Hungry Jack sponsorship.
Yes, it did.
And helped the team expand a little bit and improve.
Yep.
How it was a brief time in this car. How many years did you run?
Well, three years to begin with.
Yeah.
Then I went to Cup. My career's been a roller coaster pretty much.
But you ran 3 years. You had Fiddle Faddle for a little while.
Hungry Jack. Yeah, Hungry Jack for a year and a half. Then Fiddle Faddle. Yep.
And so you had a lot of success in this car though.
Yeah.
And
we got to the point where, and I think this, I'm going to brag a little bit. I think every racer likes to have this point. We got to the point where we unloaded the racetrack and everybody timed us.
Yes.
They wanted to know how fast was that 34. That's what we got to keep up with. And we ended up in 3 years, I think we won 7 or 8 races in 3 years. Yeah.
You drew the attention of Ray Mock.
Yeah, but I want to back up for a second because I got a couple of great Dale stories.
Let's go.
So, actually, the first Dale story was Richmond in the 42 Ames car. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And we were running good. This is the new Richmond racetrack. And your dad was like 8th and I was 7th. And he was beating my bumper off and finally just moved me out of the way. He said he had enough. So race goes on, and we ended up going a lap down. We have a restart not many laps to go, probably 23 laps to go, something like that. Back then, lap down on the inside, lead lap outside. So we take off on the green. And, everybody's going by. The lap cars kind of holding them up, and here come your dad. He gets the outside of me. And I raced his ass as hard as I could race him. And I hung him on the outside for like 6 laps. Finally, he got by me, got in line. Go in the park after the race in the garage. He come over, poked me in the chest, and now I'm scared to death. I think he's gonna something's wrong here. Pokes me in the chest. He says, "Now that's how you do it. When some moves you out of the way, that's how you get back even at him." I was like, whoa, that was pretty damn cool. Yeah. And then my other one more is real quick, is Talladega, Busch cars. We last lap, we come off of 4, through the middle of 3 and 4, and I was like 7th and he was 8th, right behind me. We were on the top, and we come off of the corner, and we got a run going. I mean, big time run. There was nobody in front of us. Might have been somebody pulled back in. Anyway, he pulled off into the inside line. I drove all the way up and finished 3rd. So we come to the gas pumps. We all parked there. And, it was like my second race at Talladega. I finished 3rd. It was like, ooh, yeah. So we're in the garage, and we're all happy, and we're hanging out with the car. And he pulls up over there, and he gets out, and he's pissed off. You can see it in his face. And I yelled over, I said, "Earnhardt!" I said, "Where the hell did you go?" He said, if you stayed behind me, I'd have won and you'd have been 2nd. He just shakes his head and starts laughing. It was so funny.
Yeah.
Because he knew. Me and your dad had a different relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. I guess that's a good opportunity to talk about that. So in around the mid 80s or the late 80s, Dad and Geoff had a really rough couple of years. And I've talked about it on my show several times. The Earnhardts didn't like the Bodines, and the Bodines, probably didn't love the Earnhardts. At least that particular section of the family, like the Geoff and Dad. And there were times when, if Dad could spin him out and get away with it, I was okay with it. But then there were times when he would get himself 5-lap penalties, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Why are y'all so mad at each other that you're going to throw the whole race away? Like there was one Xfinity race. I think they actually wrecked each other, or Dad wrecked him in the Busch race, wrecking my granddaddy's car, right? Geoff's driving my granddaddy's car, and Dad spins him out down the back straightaway. They go into the Cup race the next day, running 7th or something like that, not even racing for the lead, I don't believe. Dad ends up wrecking Geoff in 3 and 4 and gets a 5-lap penalty. And I'm like, your whole family's up in this suite. Like, we had the condos. Like, there's 30 of us up here to watch you race. And you and him are out there around. Yeah. And now we're 5 laps down, and we got 500 miles to go. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And, but they were just so hard-headed. What was, I know you were probably consumed with everything you had going on in your life, but what was your honest recollection of that rivalry? Because that's probably one of the top 5 rivalries that's been in the sport.
Yeah.
Was Dad and Geoff.
I'm different, and I look at things way differently than most people. And for me, yeah, it was, Dale's wrecking my brother, and they're racing hard and doing these things, and it was almost a sense of respect, maybe, for your dad and Geoff, the way they raced each other so hard.
Yeah,
I never disliked Senior because he was wrecking Geoff. It was more like these two guys are hard-ass racers, and they're racing hard.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. And I think that's why me and your dad always had a different relationship, because I never felt that way about him.
Never held it against him.
Never held it against him. In fact, another cool story is I had a farm right down about 5 miles from his farm.
Yeah.
And I don't know how old Taylor was, probably 10 or 11, somewhere in there. And him and Taylor would get on the horses and ride through the woods about 5 miles to my farm.
Yeah.
And they did it 4 or 5 times one summer.
I remember when you were building the house out there.
Yeah.
And Dad going out there because you wanted to. You were like, hey man, I'm thinking about doing this with the driveway or putting this here, and you and him having that conversation.
Yeah. So they would ride over, and every time he would bust my ass because I had no hitching post for him. He's like, I'm coming over here. Damn it, get me a hitching post up here.
Yeah.
So that winter, I ended up putting up a hitching post, and he never got to use it.
Damn it.
But we had if people knew the relationship we had, they'd be like, why? You and him and your brother.
Right. It was different.
But it was cool. It was different.
Hey, it's Dale Jr. Did you know that we've got brand new merch from our Stars, Stripes, and Beers collection available now? We've got tanks, tees, beach towels, and more just in time for summer. Check it all out at shop.dirtymomedia.com. You get the opportunity to race for Raymock in the Cup Series, replacing Dick Trickle. First season in Cup in 1994. And the Raymock car had a really cool history. They had flashes, when they would get with the right driver or have the right sort of combination throughout the 80s. And I would say that I would characterize your time in the car as one of those times when they did perform well, and you would show up. Y'all ran really good several times behind the wheel of that car. Talk about that experience and being out there on the track with the best of the best. Yeah,
that was it was eye-opening. You spend your whole life watching your brothers race, and then you go in a cup and win races, and it's kind of like what we see today. Every step is just that much harder. Yeah. Right? It's always the best of the best at the top. But we had great race cars. We really did. Who was working on them? Who was your crew chief? Crew chief was Troy Selberg. Uh-huh. But we had, I don't know if you remember this one, Bobby Wellman. Yes. Race cars. I ran Bobby. My first late model stock, the first late model stock I bought to race at the beach was a Wellman chassis. Well, all of our cars at CC Welliver in the Busch Series were Wellman chassis. Mm-hmm. And I worked with Bobby, and we kind of developed our own little chassis. Well, when I went with Butch, it was actually Butch Mock Motorsports, because him and Raymond and Bob Rahilly kind of split right there. So it was Butch Mock Motorsports, but went to Butch's and got those chassis over there. And in the Busch Series, I was also running Coney shocks. So I ran my Coney shocks on that car because I knew my shocks. I knew what I needed. So we ran well. Yeah. I mean, we ran really well. That first race at Daytona, we actually led. I passed your dad and led 7 or 8 laps in that race. And Jeff Gordon wrecked me. Down the back. Yeah. You remember that? Oh, yeah. Yeah. But we ran really well that year. I made a lot of rookie mistakes, got us in a lot of trouble. We had a couple mechanical failures while running in the top 5, or a couple oil lines. I mean, just dumb things were happening. But but we ran well enough that I started getting offers from other teams.
What were some of those offers?
I've never said this to anybody. I mean, it was some big offers. Robert Yates talked to me.
Yep.
The King.
Damn.
King talked to me. Actually, Joe Gibbs, one of his guys, talked to me. I mean, it was like, wow.
Yeah.
I was kind of a little taken back by it. But I was raised, we were raised to do what we said we were going to do. And when Butch hired me, I told him, I said, look, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity, and I'm going to stick with you, and we're going to win races together as long as it takes. And Butch was all in.
Yeah.
So I turned them all down.
Damn it.
And at the end of the next season, Butch fired me.
Why do you think
learned
that
a hard
happened?
lesson? Honestly, I think the crew chief got in his ear, and there's a lot of things that went on that I won't say on air because it really doesn't shed a good light on him. And I think Butch just got talked into that it was the driver's fault.
Yeah.
And if you know the behind the scenes, it really wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Which 9 times out of 10, it's probably not. I didn't forget how to drive in a year.
Sure.
You know, we just didn't have the race cars we had the year before. And at the end of that year, Butch fired me. So
after the 95 season with Ray Mock, you racing in the Xfinity Series back then? Or?
Yep. In 96, I went to drive for Ron Neal.
Who's that?
You remember Prototype Racing Engines?
Yeah.
That was Ron Neal.
What was the car?
81 Cape Canaveral
was
on the car. It was Cape Canaveral Cruise Lines.
Yeah.
And Ron gave it all he had, and it wasn't much. We had no money.
Yeah.
We had 3 cars, and we'd have to take the suspension off of one car and put it on the next one for the next week, and we keep rotating. And we had 2 motors, and he had to change things every week on the motors.
Damn.
There was only 4 of us working on them.
What a change from running in the Cup Series.
We spent that year. We spent $700,000, and most of the Busch teams were spending $1.3 million, $1.5 million, basically twice what we spent. We won 1 race at South Boston, excuse me, and finished 3rd in the points.
And then in '98, you were racing the '66 Trop Arctic car for CC in the Xfinity Series. We'll just call it the Xfinity Series. But you also get this opportunity to race the Tabasco car in the Cup Series.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about our time together in the Xfinity Series, but Tabasco was one of the most sought-after sponsors. It was like a big deal when they came in. Great-looking race car. Darrell had drove it a little bit, and they struggled, and I think you came in.
Well, no, Darrell was after us.
Darrell was after you. I got you.
Yeah, so
that was, but I remember, like, I just want to say, every year there's like some new entity or a new program or something that looks really awesome, right, on the outside, and that was it. Everybody's like, that's Tabasco, new team, big deal, and it sounded awesome. Now, what was the experience?
It was rough.
Why?
It was rough.
Why did it look? What did it? The presentation was pretty fantastic.
Yeah, Tabasco is a sponsor and a company, just fantastic people. Yeah. In this sport, everybody isn't quite as forthright as you would like them to be, and that's how these owners ended up being. They came from the world of Indy cars. They said all the right things. Had the right ideas for the team. Actually, things that we're doing today, they were going to do because they came from IndyCar world. And, so we have the largest sponsor in the sport.
Yeah.
It was the largest sponsor, $7 million.
Damn it.
And at the time,
that's huge.
Hendrick was huge. Yeah. At the time, Rick and Richard, they were getting $5.5, $6 million for their teams, and we had $7 million. And I'm like, oh, man, we can make something here.
Yeah.
So we get Pat Trayson as a crew chief.
Pretty solid.
Very solid. Yeah.
I remember y'all being fast.
Yeah.
In Atlanta or somewhere? Y'all went somewhere.
Yeah.
Y'all were so quick.
Yeah. And Mark Smith did the motors.
Yeah.
So we had the right people. We had a good team. We had good people on the team. Well, they made the first mistake is they went to Jack Roush and bought all the cars that Chad Little had wrecked. Okay, so now we're struggling with that. And, we had one good chassis. Mark had one good motor. He had a bunch of junk parts that he's trying to build motors out of, and he just doing the best he could. But he had one motor that was like top shelf. Well, we had that motor in that car at Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I think we qualified third and finished fourth.
Yep.
I mean, it was a great day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like what we should be doing.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with a bunch of junk. You can't do it week in and week out when you're just running junk.
Yeah.
And, Pat did the best he could with the junk he had. Well, they ended up firing me.
And put Daryl in there.
Well, and put Daryl in there. Well, when they fired me, they never told Tabasco.
And that's why Tabasco flew off.
And
they had all this promotional bought. You're all over it.
They spent $3 million on marketing me.
Damn it.
On top of what they gave, because they were all in.
Yeah.
They were all in on the racing deal. And then all this goes down, and it was right before Charlotte, and the CEO of Tabasco flew to Charlotte for the race, went to the garage area before practice ever started, had nothing on Tabasco. Nobody even knew he was there. And again, I found this out like a couple years later. And he went around to all the car owners, not all of them, but several car owners, several crew chiefs, several drivers, and asked them, what's wrong with my team? And the only satisfying thing I got out of it is that none of them told him it was me.
Yeah.
They said it was the owners and different things, but yeah. So that was kind of gratifying that my peers did not blame me for the situation.
Well, they didn't survive much longer. In 98, 99, racing for CC in the 66 car with me, man. Y'all were fast.
Yeah.
Contenders every week.
Yeah.
I was really lucky to be in a pretty fantastic race car myself that helped mask some of my my rookie issues. But and I had some really good people around me, so I was able to get out there and compete. But and we raced good together, I thought, until
we did one time.
Peak. Yeah, one time. And I don't know that.
And it was my fault. I'll admit
really?
It. Yes. If you not watched the video,
yeah, I know.
I went down there and got sucked around
loose.
and
yeah. That place. So I had two races at Pikes Peak, and two bad days. That was one with you, and the other was Tony Stewart put me in the wall in the other one. But it was a fun racetrack, but very flat. And our cars, our cars were kind of edgy. And if you got underneath somebody, it's a potential to happen. But I was pretty proud of myself back then. By that point in the season, I had, I can do this. I've won a few races. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And your last name was Bodine, so it was like an automatic.
Didn't help.
It was like an automatic trigger for an Earnhardt. But but after that, we never had. Do you remember?
Nothing.
No problems after that.
No problems.
I remember. God, we thought we were such big tough back then, and that happening and saying that about you, and then I was like, I wonder how he's going to react. I don't know. I don't know you well enough.
You said that, but you didn't let them know what you said.
Who? Oh, I got out of the car and they interviewed me, and I said that cue ball headed fool wrecked me.
And show him what I brought you.
So.
Brought him a little present today to put on with the rest of his tchotchkes.
A little cue ball signed by Todd. This is one of my favorite things in the room now. So,
cue ball headed fool.
Yeah. I will ask you, what was your reaction when you heard that?
Laughed.
Yeah.
Because you're right. You were young. I think it was your first year, right? And everything our families had gone through, and And that was the thing. One of my big lessons growing up was, and I feel this way still today, is I don't hold grudges. I don't try not to think bad of people and talk bad of people, because especially in our sport and what we do, it's gonna happen, man. It's just part of it's the nature of the game, and if you hold grudges against people, you're gonna have no friends.
Yeah,
you're gonna have nothing, And it was funny.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this. I tried to find one, but I couldn't find one. That next week, I made some of them T-shirts.
Did you?
Had? I swear you got one.
Yeah.
It was a rack of billiard balls, but we changed all the numbers on the balls to the race card numbers that we raced with, and yours was up front, and I was the cue ball, and it showed the balls all getting broken apart. Yeah.
I'll be damned.
We just gave them away at the racetrack the next week.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, man, I know this is a common habit of everybody, but those 2 years in that Xfinity series, I don't know what it was about that series, but the people competing in it, you and LaJoy and McLaughlin and all the guys and having Mark come and race with us, holy I couldn't have asked for a better classroom to go to school in than what I experienced in that series during those 2 years. I mean, obviously getting pushed and pressured by Matt Kenseth, who would become one of the greatest, race car drivers that I'd raced against, one of the, a champion in the NASCAR series, and having somebody at my age or somebody, coming in at the same time as me and us competing against each other. And then Jeff Green, when he hit his stride with the 32 Kleenex car the following year in 99, had he not missed Rockingham, he might have won in that championship that year. But I had a lot of fun in the series, and obviously I would get fortunate enough to move up into the Cup, and you would too. You got more opportunities to race in the Cup Series beyond that. So tell me how that process happened. So you talk about the roller coaster and the up and down and the in and out. The Tabasco deal goes wrong. You get back in the 66.
Yep.
Prove you're more than capable.
Yep.
And who calls you next?
Travis Carter. Yeah. Travis been around forever. He was with the 33 and Harry forever. And had his own team with Carl Haas. Spencer was driving for him, and they started a second team with DW driving, and that wasn't working out. And he come over and said, "Hey, Kmart's going to sponsor us again next year. I'd like you to come drive this thing."
What did you think?
Well, I was all in.
Yeah,
I was all in because you knew Travis was going to have good stuff. Spencer was running good, so it's like, let's do it for sure.
Yeah.
So we went up to Statesville, to where our shop was.
Yep. Right off 40.
Yep, right off 40. And the second year, we're getting ready to go to Daytona. I mean, it's literally 2 weeks before we're going to Daytona with Kmart Blue Light Special. And Kmart went Chapter 11. It said no checks were coming in the mail.
Yeah.
And we had nothing.
What'd you do?
Well, we raced for a little while and ended up, who did we get there? We got National Guard.
Yeah.
Came in there. With Sam Belnavis had the sponsorship with the Guard and brought it to us. And we ended up racing with the Guard for a year. And then they went to Roush and Biffle after that. And then next year, we got Discover Card. And we went back to the one-car team, and we drove the 26.
Yep.
We went from the 66 to 26. Donnie Wingo was the crew chief. And it took us a little while to get going and figure things out, Donnie learning me. And, man, by the end of the year, we were fast. We were really fast. We had a chance to win at Rockingham, running fifth and blew a right front.
Yeah.
But we were really fast. And, again, the same story. We get to the end of the year, and I forget who Discover Card was. Smith Barney owned Discover Card, and Smith Barney lost a bunch of money that year. Discover Card made a bunch of money. So Smith Barney said, look, we need all your money to bail ourselves out.
Yeah.
Cut the program off. That was it.
Yeah.
And so here we are 2 weeks to go in the season. No sponsor for the next year. Travis hadn't talked to anybody about sponsorship because they said they were coming back and ended up closing down.
He closed it. You're out of a ride. You would go to replace Jimmy Johnson in the Herzog-Jackson Motorsports car in the Xfinity Series, the white 92.
Well, that was in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. I was driving. I believe I was the first one to drive both series full time.
Damn it.
Yeah. And again, another sad story. It was after 9/11, and insurance companies were in bad shape, and we were leading the points.
In the Xfinity Series?
Xfinity Series, yeah. Rambo was a crew chief.
Yeah.
Tony Liberati, we were doing great, man. We were fast every week.
Mm-hmm.
And the Herzogs own a very large construction company, and their bonding company went under because of 9/11. So they had to find a new bonding company. Well, they couldn't find one company that could handle their business, so they had to have two. And they sat down with these bonding companies, and the company said, what's this racing program you're spending $4.5 million on? What is this about? Oh, that's our golf game. That's what we do for fun.
Yeah.
Well, if you want us to bond you, you're going to have to get rid of your $4.5 million game. So they closed the team down.
Damn it.
Halfway through the season.
Just like that.
It was a little over halfway,
Yeah.
but yeah, just closed it down.
All of this, as tough as this probably was to go through, would lead you to the Truck Series. Mm-hmm. Had you ran in the Truck Series at all before 2005?
Yeah. Actually, I was Jack Roush's first truck driver.
Yeah.
Yeah. 95, the first year of the series, Jack started the truck team. We ran 4 races, 5 races. We were supposed to run 6, ran 5 races, and we ran pretty good. What the cool story there is the very first race was our Richmond. Mm-hmm. And we were running like we were horrible. I mean, like 14th, couldn't get, hanging on for dear life. And this is when they had the halfway breaks. Come down pit road, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know any of this was going on. Come down pit road, cross the wall come Mark Martin, Jimmy Finning, Teddy Musgrave.
Damn it.
And I forget who his crew chief was.
Yeah.
Now, all these guys, even though Mark and Teddy were drivers, everybody knows they worked on race cars their whole lives. They knew what the hell they were doing. So, and then a couple other crew members. They jacked the side of the truck up, both sides. Guys get on the back, so the front comes off the ground. They changed both front springs in the sway bar on the halfway break.
Dang.
Let this thing down, jacked it up, checked the wedge, couple quick things. I mean, this is all in 5 minutes. They did all this. We went out and hauled ass. Drove up. I think we finished like 5th or 6th, something like that. It was crazy. But they on the TV, they were calling it the $1 Million Pit Crew because the TV was on them the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So we ran those races, and that was my first truck stuff with Jack.
You would end up getting an opportunity to finish your career as a trucker from 2005 to 2012 with Germain Racing. That you were again probably the guy that everybody had the stopwatch on every time you unloaded. Mm-hmm. Help me understand, I suppose, the satisfaction of finding some place that where you feel. I'm assuming that you feel like you finally found your place because you stayed there forever.
Yeah.
You had success there forever. A lot of things changed behind the curtains with that program over the course of those years, I'm sure, but you always were competitive and one of the trucks to beat. You had stability for the first time. You had an operation that was sustainable for the first time in your life. Talk about going through that process.
Yeah, that's, Mike Hillman Sr. hired me to do that. Mm-hmm.
Who was driving that truck?
I was the first one.
You were the first driver.
Mm-hmm. which is another funny story. So the Germain brothers, car dealers out of Columbus, Ohio. Mike calls me up. Me and Mike had been friends for a while. Our shops were next to each other, and we'd have beers together after work about every night. And then he was Brett's crew chief for a while, and so we were really close friends. He calls me up and says, "Hey, I got these guys in Ohio going to start a Toyota truck team. This is Toyota's first year in the trucks." He said, "I want you to come drive this thing." I said, "Well, hell yeah." Because at the time, this was 2004, I'd been relegated to doing starting parks to pay the bills, make sure everything got paid. Now, you talk about pressure. You think it's only a starting park and just go out and there's more pressure doing that than the guys racing full time, because it's like your motor's not as good. You got one set of tires for practice. You got to qualify in a set. You have to make the race. You have no points. You have nothing. No provisionals.
Yeah.
You talk about pressure. That was pressure.
Yeah.
And, man, we made them all, too. We did really well.
Yeah.
But so I was doing that, and Mike called me up and said, "Hey, I want you to come to the shop. These 3 guys are coming down to see the shop, see what's going on. I want you to meet them. We'll talk about, racing. I want you to drive." So they come down. I go to the shop. It's a beautiful day out. I roll in there. I got a pair of shorts on, flip-flops, T-shirt. And I roll up in the office, and there's these 3 guys sitting there with suits on and ties. Steve Germain, the middle brother, he's the smart aleck of the 3. He said, Mike introduced us all, and Steve says, "So is this how you come for a job interview, dressed like this?" I said, "Hell no. I thought I already had the job, man. I come to just meet you guys."
Yeah.
And that was our introduction.
Damn.
And, of course, they all laughed. Great. 3 great guys.
Yeah.
I mean, really, all 3 of them, Bob was the oldest, then Steve and Rick the youngest. I mean, just great people, loved racing, had great families. I mean, couldn't ask for a better situation. And I get to drive for one of my best friends.
Yeah.
And we had success right off the bat.
Yeah.
The first race was Richmond. We ended up finishing 4th. Went to California and smoked them. We had to pit, and we had to come from the back, and ended up beating Teddy with like 4 laps to go, and won that one. Went to the next race, was Las Vegas. We should have won that one. Shane Meal moved me on the last lap.
Mm-hmm.
He had fresher tires. He moved me on the last lap, finished 2nd. Then we won Kansas. Right off the bat, we had it going on, and it was fun.
Yeah.
There was no more pressure.
Good schedule.
Great schedule. And when you unloaded the racetrack, you knew you could win the race. Mm-hmm. How much better can that get with no pressure? And we ended up I think it was 8 years total. We won 21 races in 8 years and 2 championships. Won the first one for Toyota, first National Series champion for Toyota, first 2-time champion. Pretty proud of those things.
Yeah. The success you had in that truck, that was a lot of fun to see, because I think for me personally, I always felt like that you weren't ever really put in a position to show exactly what you were capable of doing. And if I was to say, what was my favorite era of your career that gave me this idea that you really could do what you ended up doing in this truck, was when you drove for Raymock or Butch in the 75. To get in that car, watching that car from the early 80s kind of do what it did and have struggles and find a little success. When you got in that car, the way that car improved and how that team improved as a whole really made me have a lot of appreciation, I think, for your ability just to go fast, right? And I'd watched your brother race, and I'd watched Brett race for years, and I just felt like in terms of just pure feel and for a car and ability to like drive a car quickly, like you had an edge. Like maybe Geoff had a little more racecraft. I'm not sure where you kind of rank you and your brothers, but I don't know that they would have gotten in the truck and did what you did. Presented with this opportunity where this thing should go win, I don't know that they could I don't know that they could mimic what you accomplished in that truck. And I know you probably wouldn't do this publicly in terms of rating y'all's abilities or talents, but maybe you can tell us where their strengths were and where yours were, and what were your weaknesses, what were their weaknesses.
Well, it's funny you asked this, because I've been asked before about this, and it's kind of, I don't know if it's ironic or just the way the family structure works, but I think I'm a little of both of them.
Yeah. I
really do. Geoff, he hard charger, go get him, get the hell out of my way kind of racer. That's why he won 600 races. And people didn't like him because of it. And, after the race, he was about racing. He didn't go out in the parking lot, drink beer with the guys. He went back to the shop, unloaded, and got ready for the next race. I mean, he was a hard-nosed racer. And, Brett comes along, sees all of this in Geoff and how the fans react and how the competitors react. And I don't know how well you know Brett, but he's just a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's just everybody. He's the guy in school that everybody liked.
Right.
If you're a head, a jock, a brain, it didn't matter. You liked Brett. He's just that kind of guy. So Brett comes along. He goes the other way. Mm-hmm. Mr. Nice Guy on the track, patient, always trying to just put himself in the right place to win races. And he had success doing it. He was very good at it. And I grow up watching these two, right? And I'm like, well, Geoff's hard to pass, and he's fast, and he's go get him. I like that, but Brett's pretty damn smart. I think you got to be smart at this. So I ended up just kind of right down the middle.
Yeah,
I really did. I
blended the two.
Took the best of both of them, and that's what I became, I think.
Well, Geoff is 15 years older than you.
Yeah.
Right, and so I bet we assume that y'all had a relative. Being closer together in age would have kind of. I don't know. That age gap probably made things different as well. Like he was probably gone, right? In a lot of situations, he was well ahead of you in life and physically, geographically, not in the same place as you to have a major influence on your life. But once you finally get to the Cup level or get into the NASCAR ecosystem, how close are y'all? In the last probably 20 years, right? Like what are family reunions like? What are, you're at the racetrack together. I know how me and my brother were, and what we didn't see each other or do much with each other. But then when we found each other in the same sort of lifestyle and racing against each other, we became a little more close.
Well, that's pretty fair estimate right there, or assessment. We really didn't race against each other till we were all in Cup.
Right. Exactly.
I had raced against Brett like maybe twice in New England when I first started racing modifieds a little bit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really know. In fact, one time I beat the back bumper off his car at a little short track. But so we didn't get that close family ties. You're right. When I was growing up, Geoff was already gone.
Yeah.
He was already off racing. Brett's 5 years older than me, so our relationship was different in that his friends weren't friends of mine, and they were older, so that was different too.
Yeah.
And when we all got into the Cup together, now Brett's a little different because I worked with Brett some in his modified, and I lived in the same area and worked for the same people and changed tires. And it's a little different there. So me and Brett have always been a little closer. Then Brett moved south, and I was still up there, and then I moved south. But we never, when you're only a couple years apart, it makes a difference in your relationship. But when you're 5 years, 15 years, you don't have that brotherly relationship.
Yeah.
And
not a lot of relatability.
No,
right?
No, not
such
at all.
different parts of life.
Yeah, and
is that the way it is today? Like me and Carrie, like I can call Carrie and say, "Man, I love you," and he knows I'm telling him the truth, and he'll say the same to me. But otherwise, like we don't communicate. We don't really have anything we don't have anything happening in our lives that do bring us together.
Same thing.
Other than Thanksgiving, Christmas, the Earnhardt gatherings.
I think that in this day and age, life is just so busy for everybody. It's just different than when we were kids, and we all have our own things going on, and it's just hard to be together.
Did you read Geoff's book?
Believe it or not, I haven't.
Read it. Damn it. You got to read this book, man.
He gave me a copy of it, and a friend came over and said, "Oh, man, I want to read that." Well, I said, "Okay, I haven't read it, but I'm going to let you have it and got to give it back to me," and I still haven't got it back.
Dude, I read this book. It's great. It's really good.
I heard there's a lot of stuff.
There is so much stuff in there.
Yeah.
And so, Geoff, so the rivalry and you know, for lack of a better word, it's a strong word, I don't like to use it, but the hatred that was brewing between the two clans there back in the 80s, that all is like washed away, melted away, right? And and not really giving. I never gave Geoff an opportunity for me to see his side of it, right? And I didn't want, you know, I never gave him that chance to, like, for me to go, wonder what it was like for him, you know? And so to read his book and hear from his perspective of the rivalry with Dad, but then also his experience as an owner driving the 7 car, his dealings with Hoosier, Goodyear, the France family, his version of the truth is very compelling. And I think, you know, I think it's really, really interesting. And I was just, you should read it.
I'm gonna. Yeah. I'll get it back.
He truly,
but, you know, that's the thing about Geoff is he was a rebel that came down here. You know, not a Southern rebel, but he came down as an outsider and really shook up the NASCAR world at that point. Because at that point there wasn't a lot of, I don't know if there was any Northern or Westerners or Midwestern. I don't think there was anybody else that had come down.
You're right.
And I'm telling you, there was people that didn't like Northerners. No. It's just the way it was.
You're right.
I don't think it's that way anymore, but back then it was.
Yeah, it was a thing. It was a thing. It was kind of like Ford versus Chevy. You know, and but what we know now, I think what we know now is that, like, the Northern Modified, the history and the strength of the Northern Modified, and the racers like Ron Bouchard and all those guys that your brother raced against, just we would learn, or I guess we would grow to respect, like, how great those guys really were. Yeah, but when it was happening, it wasn't easy.
No, it wasn't good.
Yeah, it wasn't. Let's wrap your career up. You know, and I love this is one of my favorite parts of the conversation. So you end your career, and we all kind of end our careers not really knowing, like, how much is left in the tank, and does anybody who's still here believes in me, and I kind of want to know, I guess, what your experience was like in the final couple of years of your career, and was that a decision that you made? Was this process of, because, like, not racing or stopping something that you have done all your life and wanted to do all your life is such a difficult thing, and I still deal with that today. I have no idea how. I can't imagine, I think, personally, how heartbreaking that's going to be to know for sure that I'll never get to drive another car in competition. And I wonder if it was difficult for you and how that process went. Yeah,
you know, the last year, Jermaine, we didn't run that well. We struggled.
Why were things becoming difficult? Because it had seemed so easy for so long.
Yeah, we kind of got off on a tangent and lost our way a little bit, which is easy to do in racing, you know. And then that at the end of that year, Jermaine's decided just, you know, that was enough. Rick and Steve Jermaine just didn't want to spend their money anymore. Of course, Bob stayed in it and had the Cup team for a while.
Yep.
So they disbanded the trucks. And at that point, I really didn't know what I was going to do. Didn't have an idea. And I said, well.
How old are you at this point?
Oh, my goodness.
Roughly.
48, maybe, somewhere in there.
You partnered with Randy Moss.
Yeah, at the end of that, in the middle of that year, we did. That was cool.
What was that like? I seen him at Daytona.
Yeah.
And he's walking through the garage, and he goes, "Yo, Dale, it's Moss, baby." I was like, "Damn, that is Randy Moss."
Yeah.
And I can't believe he knows who I am.
Yeah.
It was badass.
He is. He was.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Larger than life.
After getting to know him, what a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
What an incredibly intelligent person. He understood the sport. So at the time he was together with us, we were racing together. He was playing for the Patriots, which happens to be my team.
Ah.
Well, we're in the motorhome at Iowa. I think it was Iowa. And my wife starts busting his ass about how Tom Brady's overrated and doesn't deserve the rings. And Randy stood up mad, defending him. And he went on this tyrant. And when he got done, I was like, dude, you need to be a motivational speaker. It was just so intelligent in the things he was saying. It was very impressive. But anyway, great guy. Funny as hell. That was a good time.
You would make the decision to leave the program as the program's shutting down and they're going to focus on their Cup stuff. What do you do next?
Well, I really didn't know. And when it kind of got out, Duke Thorson called, said, "Hey, why don't you come drive for me?" I said, "Cool. Yeah, I'd do that. It'd be fun, you know." Duke's long history in the sport. They do things right. They got a great place up there. There's, shop's nice. The team's good. They build good stuff. Yeah, I'll go do it. And we struggled. We struggled really bad. And we got about halfway through the year, and Duke was spending his own money out of the kindness of his heart to just race me. He wanted to have the 2-time champion the whole bit. And we had fun, but we just wasn't having any success. So I told Duke, I said, "Look, you're just wasting your money. We're not getting anywhere. We're not gaining on it. I don't need to run bad. You don't need to spend your money. Let's just call it quits."
Yeah.
So we did right in the middle of the season. And, I really didn't think the process through very well. I got quit the job, and I'm like, all right, now what the hell do I do?
Yeah.
Right? I'm old. I don't have money to bring to a team. There's no teams that are going to take you in the middle of the year anyway. Like, what the hell do I do now? I mean, I really didn't think it through when I quit.
Yeah.
And I'll be damned. 2 weeks later, Fox Sports called me. Dan Schutte, who was one of my best friends now, he called. He wasn't at the time. He's this producer. He said, "Hey, Michael Waltrip has to go to Goodwood, be in Goodwood. Would you want to come to Iowa and be in the booth with Phil and Rick Allen?" Well, hell yeah, I'll try it. I got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
So I went, my first shot out of the booth, and I did okay. I wasn't the best, but I did okay. Hell, they hired me. And I did the booth like 5 times the rest of that year, 3 or 4 times, 5 times. Ended up doing the pre-race show. And I had the pre-race show for 11 years.
Yeah.
It was a great run. And the only thing bad about it was here in the studio, so I didn't get to go to the racetrack.
Sure.
Well, then last year they decided they're going to cut all the pre-race shows out, which included mine. And I was like, all right, here we go again. Now what am I going to do? And now I feel like I'm in broadcasting, and that's what I do, and hopefully somebody will pick me up or will do something. So we call a lot of people, talk to CW, talk to NBC, made all the rounds, and talked to my boss at Fox and said, why don't you give me a shot on pit road?
Yeah.
I know everybody. Maybe I can get some scoop or add something special to it. And she says, okay, let's give it a shot. So we did 3 last year, did pretty good, and here I am doing them again this year.
Yeah.
having fun.
Back at the track.
And it's crazy is being away 11 years, I lost touch. I really lost touch with a lot of things going on and a lot of the new people that have come in. So I've been slowly getting to know these kids and these new crew chiefs and general managers and talking to people, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm having a good time.
You came back to race a one-off in the trucks.
Actually, 6 offs.
6?
Did 6 of them.
I didn't know you did 6.
Yeah. So when I quit ThorSport and went into broadcasting, never really looked back at anything. And we were at our house out by the pool one night and having some drinks, and somebody was scrolling on Racing Insights and looked it up, looked my name up. And
oh, hell.
You realize you got 794 starts in NASCAR. I was like, are you me? So the big thing you need to do 6 more to get to 800. I said, you know what? That would be pretty cool, but it's been 9 years since I've been in a race car. I don't know if I can still do this or not.
Yeah.
So I got thinking about it, and we talked some more, and me and Janet was like, well, let's call Marcus Lemonis and see if he's interested in helping out, because Marcus had helped us before.
Yeah.
You know, he was our sponsor, our series sponsor, Camping World. And he said, damn it, I'd love to do that. I'll do all 6 races with Camping World on a truck. All right, now we got a sponsor. Now I got to find a team. So I got to know Stuart a little bit, and I knew he was the one Toyota team that had really good trucks that could maybe do a second team. Yeah. So I talked to Stuart, talked to Chris Larson, his owner, and let's do this. So the next year we ran 6 races with Hallmar Friesen Racing, had a great time. Let everybody know this was the last hurrah. So every track that we went to, the fans were so kind and generous. It was pretty special, the things that we had. We did things all the way along the line. I had different pit boards every race with that track and what number that was, and they're all hanging in the shop up there. So it was a really great experience, and we get down to the last race. The year before they ran Watkins Glen, and they took it off the schedule that year. Mm-hmm. It's like, damn it, I wanted to end at home.
Yeah.
But Pennsylvania, Pocono, I've been going there since I was 8 years old. That was pretty close, and my wife's from there. Janet's from that area, so that was the last race. That was going to be the last race, and we planned it up big, man. We actually had a Martz bus, a regular big bus, with all our friends from the valley up there, and we had like 50, 60 people. The racetrack did some really cool things with some videos and stuff, and ended up crashing on the 7th lap. So that was the end of my career.
Yeah. As you, when you look back on it, I mean, I know your last full-time run was over 10 years ago, but do you feel like you have got it all out of your system?
No.
Yeah. Mm-mm. So the driving part, still miss it?
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. In fact, their trucks are going back to Watkins Glen this year, and Janet's like, "You sure you want to? We can do one more. Let's go to Watkins Glen and do one more. 801." And I would love to do it, but Stewart's team's already committed to a second truck for those races, and honestly, I'm not in shape enough to do it. And the one thing that I did learn running those 6 races, growing up, and I'm sure you saw this too. We watched our heroes racing, when we're kids, and they get older, and now they're running in the teens, and then they run in the 20s, and you're like, oh man, his car must be terrible. He's one of the greatest drivers ever. His cars have got to be junk, and then after doing those 6 races, and I'm like, yeah, it probably wasn't their cars. When you get older, you're just not as fast.
Yeah.
It's just the simple facts of life. I did run Watkins Glen for Bobby Dotter, and Jason Miller's crew chief and Bobby, they gave it 100% effort. And we had a really good car, had a good motor. And I go out and practice, and I'm a second and a half off the pace, and I'm driving my ass off.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me. I was like, you're just slow. It just happens.
Yeah.
Now, when we ran those 6 races, we actually ran pretty good. We had top 10 times most of the races and passed a lot of trucks and did well.
Yeah.
But, man, I'm driving my rear end off to do it. And against these kids today, holy criminy.
I know.
It's different.
Yeah. I know. I'm kind of in a situation now personally where I think, it's very, very soon I'm going to be faced with that reality that I'm not, no matter how great this car is, I'm not going to be able to do what needs to happen here. And that's going to be a tough day, but
well, I got to tell you, the stuff that you've been racing, I've been very envious of you.
Yeah.
Getting to go out in the late model stock and just have fun.
It is so fun.
Just have fun.
And you know what's interesting is the car is exactly the same car that I drove in late model stocks in 1995 or 94, 93. It's the same front Geo. It's the same chassis.
Yeah.
They'd build them better, lighter, different. They're tricked out here and there, but it's all the same.
Yeah, same stuff.
Yeah. And so when I got behind the wheel, I was like, oh, it's the same freaking tire. Who's your 45?
Yeah.
And it really ain't changed much. Everything about it feels the same. So it wasn't like hard to I have yet to get in that car and go, man, I have no clue what's going on. Man, this is going to be tough to figure out. Now, there's times when it doesn't do what I want it to, and that's probably more me than anything. But
well, I don't think you'll ever get to that point where you'll not figure it out because you have the smarts and know to what's wrong. It's just a matter of putting this and your feet all together at the same time.
Yeah, but it's so wild too watching the kids, whether they're some 20 or 18 or 15-year-old kid getting those cars and run the lap, and put and haul ass, and you're like, damn, how do you know how to do that, right? Yeah. It's so impressive. Like Wyatt, my nephew, he'll run limited car at Hickory and win. He'll go run this truck at some outdoor jump park, where he's launching himself through the air in these little, in stadium truck stuff and win. He'll go run he ran a dirt car, a full-on dirt car. It might have been a crate late model, but he goes and runs one of them for the first time and run 5th. And I'm like, he's 12. Like, how does he freaking know how to do this?
Yeah.
But because I sure as didn't know that stuff at 12 years old.
Well, yeah, but
they're starting younger.
But Wyatt's got it in his genes. He's got it from both sides because LW was a racer and Kelly's a racer.
He certainly got all that advice anyone would need from his dad and us and his mom. I do want to ask you before we wrap this up. There was a couple of memorable, famous confrontations.
Oh, I can't wait to see this.
Well, there's 2 that are highlighted here, and I think I remember this one. The other one, not so much. There was a confrontation with David Starr on pit road.
Yeah.
What happened?
Whew. Well,
and David's a nice guy.
I love David. He's always been one of my friends.
He's every time, even today, I'll see this guy. I remember there was a period of time when David Starr was relatively competitive in the truck series, right? The people that watch racing today probably don't remember that or probably didn't witness that, and they just see David out there running in the back of these Xfinity fields. Yeah. But when I walk up to that guy, he is always happy and happy to be there.
Always.
And he ain't he's not trying to ruffle any feathers. He just wants to come have fun. No. But what happened this day?
Well, so I love you, David. So don't take it personal. But our name for David was the kidney stone. Yeah. Because he's so hard to pass.
Yeah.
so we're at Loudon and he was running good. I don't know where it was. It was top 5, I think. Yeah. And I get through some traffic and Spotter says, "All right, it's a kidney stone up ahead." And I go up there, and I went to the outside of him, and he just broke loose or something. He got in the quarter panel, and around I went.
Damn it.
Kind of like what I did with you. It's just a racing deal.
Sure.
But we had a truck that was going to win. And we'd come in from the back for some reason. And it was close to the end of the race. So we ended up finishing the race. Come down pit road, and, the Hillman family, and it rubbed off on our crew members. If you mess with them, you're going to mess with all of them. Mm-hmm. And David messed with me, and it was on. And it was on big time. I mean, Mark come across the hood at David, and I got out, and we happened to park right next to each other in pit road after the race, and yeah, it was pretty big.
Damn it.
Punches going.
Really?
Oh yeah.
What did you and David ever have a talk about it afterwards?
No. It was, and that's the thing one thing about our sport. I think more times than not, it's the crew members that get their panties in a wad because their truck is wrecked. Mm-hmm. But as a driver, maybe I'm different than most, but I understand that going to happen. And I know exactly what happened, and David got loose and got into me. Was I happy about it? No. You're not going to be happy about it, but I'm not going to hate the guy because he made a mistake.
Yeah.
It's just because I've made many mistakes and taken people out, so it's going to come around. And so I never held grudges.
Kyle Busch confronted you in Victory Lane, and I believe this was at Kentucky. Somebody got so the trucks relied heavily on side force. And boy, when you put those trucks side by side, the guy on the inside was in big trouble, and I think it was Kyle Busch that night.
Yes, it was. So went down into 3, and Kyle run up high, and my truck was badass. So I drove right under him in the middle of the corner, and there was a good 3 truck lengths widths between us. I mean, we weren't even close. And I going to come off. No one is going to side for us. I'm going to come off low, and I'm passing him for the lead. Well, we get in the middle of the corner, and he just turns down, and gets right on my side, and then pulls back up and just sucks me around.
Yeah.
And I go spinning down through the infield.
Yeah.
He did it on purpose. That's part of racing. That's strategy, I guess you want to call it. I don't know.
He knew if he got on your door, you was going to have your hands full.
Yeah. So that was 8 laps after restart. Mm-hmm. So we came down pit road. We had to tape down the bed top. It didn't hurt anything. The bed top blew up. That was it. Tape it back down, filled it with gas, went back out. We probably put 4 tires on it. And here we come. We come flying up through the pack. Man, we are fast. We are bad fast. And drove all the way to 5th. And now there's like 20 laps to go. Mike Jr., Hillman Jr., my crew chief, he comes on the road and said, "Look, I want you to run half throttle." He said, "All these guys got to pit. We don't have to pit, but I want you to save some fuel just to make sure we're going to be good because it's still kind of close."
Yeah.
So I ran the last 8 laps half throttle, last 12 laps half throttle, literally all the way around. Just hold it.
Yeah.
And they're all peeling off. They all got to get gas. We get in the lead. I forget who was second, but he was like almost half track behind us doing the same thing. So I just held it half throttle. We ended up winning the race. It was awesome. So get to Victory Lane. They stick the mic in my face. And the first thing I come out, it says, first thing I got to say is I got to thank Kyle Busch for driving me dirty and sucking me around so I could come in and get enough fuel to make it the rest of the race.
Yeah.
Well, we go on with the interview, and about the time I'm done with the interview and they go off, here come Kyle. He's in his street clothes, and he comes into Victory Lane, and he's getting in my face, and we got some choice words for each other. Now, they're showing all this on TVs, so it made the headlines. Yeah, he didn't like that I called him dirty.
Did y'all ever figure it out?
No.
Didn't talk it out?
No. We've never... I think we've had a mutual respect for each other.
That's a different Kyle Busch back then.
Well, it is. And the thing about Kyle is, and I've experienced this 2 separate occasions, when you get him away from the racetrack, and he's not Kyle Busch, superstar racer, he's one of the coolest dudes you're going to hang out with.
Yeah.
Drinking, having fun, dancing. I mean, he's a cool dude.
He is not scared to dance.
No. And I've experienced that, and that's kind of what always upset me is how he acts at the racetrack.
Yeah.
Dude, you're the same person.
Yeah.
But he's just so intense in his racing.
That's true. Yeah, he is. Definitely back then, especially. Man, I've really enjoyed this. I hope you have, and I think our listeners will say the same. It's your career is a fun one because there's so many different layers to it, so many different tough moments, redeeming moments, and you've been an asset to the sport. That's one of the things that so I always felt like trying to live up to either my dad or you trying to live up to one of your brother's accomplishments was not something that I was interested in. Being an asset to something I loved, which we both loved the sport, was what was important to me. I wanted to be done one day and everybody go, it was good that you were here.
Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely what we can say about Todd Bodine is that
I appreciate that.
The sport was better for your involvement and the experiences that you had and the stories that you can tell and what you shared with us today are entertaining and fun for people. And, for them to know that when you're on those truck broadcasts, that you know what you're talking about and you have the pedigree and the experience to back it, and what you've been able to do in the broadcast booth has to be a good sense of pride for you. So I want to say thanks. I appreciate you coming on, giving us some time today. It's been a lot of fun catching up.
Well, thank you. I got to tell you, though, I've been asked a lot last few years that you've been doing this. Why hasn't Dale had you on? Why hasn't he had you on? Well, it's kind of strange, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but we never really had a relationship.
No.
We never did.
Nope.
I don't know why. I don't know how it happened. Even though we're at the same racetracks half our damn lives, it's like we just never had that relationship. And I told him, I don't know, maybe he still calls me the cue ball headed fool. I don't know. He doesn't want me on, but
yeah.
I'm glad you had me. I appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words.
Absolutely. That day, I was really mad, but I was also a very cocky kid.
Yes, you were.
And I have grown up. You were. Yep, I've grown up, and I've just always had an appreciation for you because I feel like that. I just felt like I will say this publicly. I appreciated your driving ability more than I did your brother's, and you don't have to comment on that at all. But I raced against you. I raced against Brett too, but not during his peak. Certainly didn't race against your brother Geoff at all much. But I raced with you a lot, and I had a lot of respect for how much you could get out of a car, and then to see what you did in the trucks was no surprise to me.
I appreciate that.
And I just always, I'm also very shy. I could communicate with like Hank Parker Jr. and some of the Lyndon Amick and some of those guys that were my age or younger, but it was hard for me to create a relationship with guys that were older than me.
I know exactly.
And
what you mean.
I only had a relationship with LaJoy or Mike McLaughlin because they created that. They would come. If you had came to me and said, "Hey, let me help you here. Let me show you something," that would have been the only way we'd ever developed a relationship because I was too shy and nervous to talk to anybody that was older than me. That was and plus you were kind of like a peer of my dad's, not so much, on my level.
Wow.
You'd raced Cup, right? The way we looked at you at least was probably different than you might imagine. But yeah, it's been fun catching up, man.
Yeah, thanks.
And I have really enjoyed this. We had never really had a conversation.
No.
We certainly hadn't sat down. We'd laughed, backslapped a little bit here and there when we saw each other, but about the cue ball headed fool stuff.
Yeah.
And I knew you weren't too annoyed by that, which I'm thankful. But yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Todd Bodine on the Dale Jr. Download. All right, so awesome catching up with Todd Bodine. I was kind of looking forward to seeing what that conversation about me calling him a cue ball headed fool would be like. And it is exactly as I thought it would. He's a, good dude, good racer. When you're in the heat of it and winning and doing as well as he was in the trucks, his personality would be a little maybe brasher or rougher, more confident and so forth. But as he's wound down his racing career and been out of the truck and the cars for quite some time now, he's just kind of a guy who seems like he very appreciative, very happy, and very content, very satisfied. Definitely different responses to some of the things that I asked him than I expected. Particularly like, when he goes out and runs well at Dover in 1991 or sometime around then for his like second or third Xfinity race driving for this new team. He doesn't have a ton of races under his belt. He's relatively green as a race car driver. Goes to Dover and runs in the top 5. And he didn't have like a reaction of elation or, hey, holy shit, did y'all see that? It was different. I guess that feeling that he had was different than I would have anticipated. Just trying to live through his emotions, recall those emotions of those moments, because I can put myself back into the industry in 1991, and guys were getting these sort of random opportunities. There were a lot of, independently owned race teams that maybe either like a Bobby Hillin Jr. might have a race team that's going to run 12 races. Kyle Petty had one. Ernie Irvan had one. Sterling Marlin had. All these Cup guys would have these teams that would run, a handful of races. And you'd go to Charlotte, for example, and there'd be 25 Cup drivers competing for, a field. And there would in total be 65 cars in total trying to qualify for the Xfinity race in the late 80s and early 90s. Tons of cars. And so there was a lot of opportunity for Todd Bodine to get a race at South Boston or go up to Langley and run that one. And guys would talk their way into things by working their ass off and being around, being available, being there when Kyle Petty said, yeah, I don't want to run those 8 races. Put Todd in there. Those were some cool stories to hear, and I always wondered how his career developed. And as the third Bodine kind of coming up through the ranks, it opened a few doors, but the relationship with his brother Brad and Geoff being different and a little bit separated, Todd had to earn some of it. Todd had to go to work, fabricate, be a mechanic, and create, make a living, so that those opportunities would, so he'd be there and be prepared when those opportunities happen. So pretty cool story, and his truck career in itself is a Dale Jr. Download guest interview, but, it was awesome really kind of learn where he came from. And, his career, man, in and out of, Xfinity, Cup, back to Xfinity, back to Cup, back to Xfinity, to trucks. And then he finally found a place where he could become a champion and a winner and very proud, I suppose, of his overall career. So thankful for him to come through, and I hope y'all enjoyed the show, man. We're gonna get the white flag. All right, it's time for the white flag. I want to remind you to head on over to shop.dirtymomedia.com. We have a ton of new merch for the Dirty Mo Media, bucket full of podcasts that we have. If you like Bless Your Heart, the Dale Jr. Download, Door Bumper Clear, Actions Detrimental, Speed Street, whatever it may be, we've got hats and shirts, T-shirts, sweatshirts, all that stuff available now for you to purchase and support. Show us, in the comments and on social media. Follow dirtymomedia.com and post and tag us in you wearing some of your gear. Let's see it. Let's see some of y'all out there. I know you're getting it. And don't forget our Stars, Stripes, and Beers collection drops this week. We'll have everything to be able to suit you out for summer with that collection. The teardown was live immediately after the race on Twitter and YouTube following Texas. Texas was wild, and so it was awesome to get all of the feedback from Jeff Gluck and Jordan Bianchi over that particular race and everything else going on in the industry. There is a ton going on in the industry, a lot of conversations, a lot of different conversations being had. And that's a great place to kind of get a catch-all of everything going on just right after the race is over with. Door Bumper Clear dropped on Monday. They were joined by Rodney Childers, and Rodney came in to talk about his departure from Spire and what's next for Rodney and Rodney's take on a lot of things going on in the sport. They talked about the All-Star race and the Run What You Brung idea. Rodney, as a crew chief, could give us a lot of great perspective on that. Actions Detrimental with Denny Hamlin dropped on Monday. Even though Denny blew the engine in his Toyota, he had a great podcast to recover. And I know that he gave us some great insight on all the things going on in the sport, as he does every week. He had a very passionate take on some important things going on in the sport, and you can see some of those clips as well on the Dirty Mo Media YouTube and Twitter. This week, instead of the usual Herman Schrader, there'll be a Kenny's Conversation. Kenny's out on the charity ride with Kyle Petty, which you can follow along on social media with Kyle and all the things they're doing there. Kenny's doing a great job sharing with us his experiences on the Kyle Petty charity ride, and that benefits Victory Junction. And so that will be dropping today as well. And May is officially here, and that means the Indy 500, and that also means you don't want to miss what Connor Daly will be bringing us throughout this month, telling us all the things that are happening over at Indy as all the teams prepare for such an incredible race. It's great having insight from Connor on that particular month as well as the rest of the IndyCar season. On Wednesday as well, and today as well, you want to check out NASCAR's Full Speed Season 2 on Netflix. Season 1 was a great success. Season 2 is here. It's a 5-episode series that gives you the behind-the-scenes look at all of the contenders for the playoffs last year as they all battled for the championship. A lot of behind-the-scenes views of what those drivers were dealing with and going through. You get to learn who these drivers are. I don't think you can find a better place to do it. NASCAR's Full Speed Season 2, now available on Netflix. Thursday, that's tomorrow, and that means another episode of Bless Your Heart with my wife, Amy. We went to the Miami Grand Prix, our first F1 event, and we had a lot of fun and a lot of great experiences, and we're going to tell you all about that and more tomorrow on the next episode of Bless Your Heart. That's our show today. Thank you, Todd Bodine. Appreciate everybody's effort here at Dirty Mo Media, all of our staff, for compiling all the information to put on a great show, and I hope you all enjoyed it, and we'll see you tomorrow.